All right. It is Tuesday on Daily Delivery. Happy to be back after an extra day off. Patrick Reusse joins me as he typically does on Monday, but both of us were traveling on Monday. So good timing. We coordinated that well, Patrick. You were coming back from Cooperstown, where you were there for the Hall of Fame induction weekend. You wrote about that a lot. Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, the kind of the running diary of what was going on out there, and especially a lot about Tony Oliva. I was at my grandma's 90th birthday party, so a much different weekend for both of us, but good times had by all. Patrick, was there one theme or any overarching takeaway before we get into the big kind of specifics of what you experienced and witnessed at Cooperstown this weekend?
Oh, I would guess the theme is that two guys that I think we always had hope for Tony, but it was kind of a distant hope at times, and Jim Kaat had kind of been forgotten even as a candidate to a lot of people. And to see these two guys basically the same age. Tony just turned 84, maybe today. I'd have to look up his birthday. And Jim's 83 and a half. And to have them finally make it, two great twins. Obviously, Tony, Mr. Twin, really, when you consider that he showed up here full time in '64 and has never left. He's been in our presence ever since. And then Kaat, being this big personality, that pitched here for 12 and a half years and then went off and made quite a national name for himself, both as a pitcher and as a broadcaster. And
Right.
He's kind of been brought back in the camp here, and they decided to retire his number finally. I remember writing that when they retired Blyleven's number, that Jim Kaat's number should be retired before Blyleven's number. But I think if you become a Hall of Famer and you got a strong Twins connection and you're wearing a Twins hat, we're going to retire your number, and that's okay. But just I wouldn't say giddiness of these two guys, but the relief, the happiness, the unexpected thrill for Jim Kaat, and the long-awaited, really desired, tried to suppress his want for this. Tony, I know him well, and he always would try to underplay it, but
Yeah.
he really, truly wanted it to validate what would have been a phenomenal career if not for the bad knee, and to see Tony get it. And I would say now what we should do with Tony is leave him alone because he is exhausted. He's,
Sure.
I went through it. He's got everybody, pulling on him from different directions, and he's so accommodating. He doesn't say no to anybody, but I could just see that he is just worn out by all of it. I mean, he loves it. He loves the attention. He loved what happened, but he needs 2 weeks off. He needs 2 weeks of not doing things and not having everybody come up to him. Kaat, is 83, and physically he's 60. He's unbelievable how sharp he is of mind and body. Tony's gotten beat up a little, He's
Sure.
had all new knees and new other things and a lot of surgeries to fix stuff, and was never as healthy as a player as Kaat was. Kaat played 25 years. If it hadn't been for the DH, Tony would have been done after the 1970, after the 1971 season. So, physically two different guys, and the demands on Tony have been much greater than they were on Kaat too. Good, Kaat kind of comes from 3-4 different teams.
Sure.
Well, three for sure: the White Sox, and then the Cardinals and the Twins, and so it's a different situation. And God love Tony. He was my favorite player, and I'm not lying. When I was a fan in the '60s, and he became my favorite guy when I covered the team in '74. He's such a character, and have maintained a relationship with him and his family. And I love the guy, and he just goes so out of his way to be nice to people.
Yeah.
That was the fantastic part of this for me.
Well, it's got to this whole process has just got to be, there's a lot of steps along the way. Probably, you're right, probably just exhausting in a good way. And I imagine, when it's all done, then, both these guys, wake up today, wake up tomorrow. And then it's just this kind of like a contented, calm realization that they've joined this exclusive club. And now is just kind of now they really have the opportunity to just kind of like probably really soak that in and just kind of reflect on it, I'm sure, at this point. Because, when you're in induction weekend, it's probably very hectic. Everybody kind of wants a piece of you, like you're saying, not in a bad way, but in a way that probably leaves you a little bit overwhelmed to a degree.
Yeah, and they put them in a parade on Saturday at 6 o'clock, and it was about 92 degrees, and you're riding behind that, and and then the next day they get you up early in the morning and get you hopping, and now you're up there on the stage, but it's another 90-degree day, and there's 30,000 people up there on the hill waiting for your speech, and it's not a problem for Kaat, but a part of Tony's exhaustion right now is he was so damn nervous about talking to that many people. I know, this is my opinion, but they tried to get Tony, a lot of people tried to get Tony to make a speech. And my idea would have been write down the 10 names you don't want to forget and just go. Because, to have Tony follow what would be a written out speech is just not his deal. And he obviously, he had to come back to things and say things. And he did a good enough job. But I think if we would have just let Tony go, become Tony and say his, just go, making sure he mentioned the people he wanted to mention, it might have been a little better speech for him and a little better approach from him. Because here's what I can tell people about him. He's still got the strong accent 60 years later. Obviously, people start. Well, he is one of the most observant guys I've ever been around. Mm-hmm. He sees everything that's going on. Okay, around here, he sees something happening over here. He sees something happening over here. And he can make little observations about it and what's going on at the ballpark and stuff like that. He's extremely observant. And, if you're talking to him one-on-one, you realize that. And that's obviously his game is to talk to you one-on-one and meet people like that in small groups. And this was a little different challenge for him. And he did it. He did as well as he could. And, he certainly, as I ended up writing, he certainly made his love of Minnesota and we are home clear in that speech. He wanted to make that clear that Minnesota is home, and it certainly is that for him.
MGM Wine and Spirits is the choice for savings, service, and a great selection of spirits, premixed cocktails, wines, and of course, ice-cold beers and hard seltzers. With over 30 locations throughout the Twin Cities and beyond, there's an MGM near you. Head to mgmwineandspirits.com to find a convenient location in your area. Get social. Follow MGM on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest news and trends. Make great moments with MGM Wine and Spirits, your locally owned and operated choice for over 50 years. Save time, save money. Shop MGM.
How was the travels with Sharkman? I enjoyed reading about them, but obviously he is a mutual friend of ours. And how was the adventure?
Well, it was kind of I was not, the start. This was just something I wanted to do. It wasn't a Star Tribune assignment. So I was trying to figure out at the prices in Cooperstown, there was no way that I could afford to go stay in. As I pointed out, the hotel I stayed in when I was there in February, you could have filmed The Shining in there,
right?
And they wanted $800 a night with a 3-day guarantee, $2,400 plus taxes. So we weren't going to do that. So then I started thinking, and I had talked to Sharkman about And my wife and I were considering a drive through Canada to come down there, and that didn't work out. But I told them that we spent a couple of days in Toronto, but that didn't work out. But he had kind of cleared the weekend ahead of time. So I said, what the heck? I'll fly to Toronto, and it'll be fun traveling with Sharkman, who's an interesting character, as we both know. And it worked out great. It's he could drive a little slower in the rain. I would say that. I was interested. A bit impatient. He's not the kind of guy He's not the kind of guy that's going to flip the finger at a driver, because he's too smart for that. But he will cast some aspersions on their driving skills if they ease ahead of him. But it was fun, and he really helped me out a lot, and we had a great time. And I got to have dinner with boxing Bob Elliott, one of my friends who's lives up in Toronto, and I had Sharkman meet him and years ago, and they become buddies. And then in Utica, I got to hook up with Rob Fowler, my old the late great Bob Fowler's dad, who started the ball club up there in Utica in 1984, and 1984, and he and I broke curfew more than a few hundred times when we covered the Twins together in the 70s. He was a really good friend of mine, got ALS and died. And then we got to Cooperstown for a couple of days. Twins had a great bash on Saturday night, just if you wanted to see people. Big turnout for the official Twins party. Mm-hmm. For Kaat and Oliva. So it was much worth it, that's for sure.
Let's move on a little bit here. It was sounds like a great weekend, great for Minnesota, great for the Twins. At the same time that was going on, the Twins resumed play in the second half of their season. A lot has happened already. I mean, they have, two good wins over Detroit. Byron Buxton didn't play in either one. Now he's getting injections, like platelet-rich injections, trying to get him kind of back into health, or however it's going to go for the rest of the year. And there's talk of surgery, maybe in the off season already. Miguel Sano is back up now. I don't know. It just feels like the news is coming in waves. What do you the Buxton stuff that they're saying he's probably going to play this week? It's more of a kind of get him ready kind of stuff. They're probably lucky to get 2 wins without him, and 2 pretty convincing ones at that. But what's kind of your take on Buxton and Sano kind of are always going to be linked in my mind, even though they're 2 completely different players. Obviously, they're just they represent this era of kind of hope, potential, and here they kind of both are again. We don't know exactly what Sano's role will be now that he's back and healthy, and Buxton trying to get back to being healthy again. What should we expect from these guys in the last 66 games?
Well, I wasn't around, but how did we treat it that we find out that they let Buxton play in the All-Star game knowing he was going to be injected the next day with the platelet? I know he wanted to play in the game, but if that isn't coddling a player, I don't know what is, to the betterment of his own personal feelings more than to the betterment of the club. I mean, to me, it's really very questionable that they would let him go out to the All-Star game instead of have that injection on Monday or Sunday evening or something. But
I wasn't here either. I read a Rocco quote basically to the effect of, we wanted to let him play in the All-Star games. That's a big deal for a player. But you're right. That was the first question I had, because I wasn't paying close of attention either. So the first I knew about it was when I saw Buxton didn't play Saturday. I was like, why didn't he play? So I started investigating, but I did see that Rocco quote to that effect.
Yeah, they go and, the fact that they went in and beat the hell out of Detroit 2 times kind of takes the steam out of any, the questioning this strategy. They got away with it, I would say.
Yeah.
They got away with it, but it's certainly questionable that they decided to let him fly out to LA and play in a game. and start in the game, and then knowing that they were going to fly him back and have him injected on, I think was it here or was it out in LA or
I think
something?
it was out in LA.
But they had him injected. I'm sure he flew back on some private plane, so it's not like that's a big deal too. But it was kind of, it just kind of, the whole way of Twins doing business now is just a little puzzling at times. And that was another one of the puzzles. That's for sure. It's going to be interesting now that Sano's back. He hit 350 or something in St. Paul, but he also had a game on Saturday night when he struck out 4 times, or Friday night when he struck out 4 times. So we'll see. I mean, God almighty, he's hitting 93, right? He's hitting 93 as he returns. Is that right? 93. That's, it's ridiculous.
It's a very short batting average.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, I think we'll see a real sudden decision here, because if he comes back and can't catch up with a 94-mile-an-hour fastball at the letters and can't avoid striking out half the time, then okay, this is it. This is the last gasp for him and the Twins. But I think they had to give him a last gasp, and the fact that Celestino, you like having him around, especially when Buxton's getting injected in the knee. But I guess they decided that they're going to let Nick Gordon play the out of center field on the days that Buxton doesn't, and that'll give him a chance to have Sano on the team. But where he's going to play, I have no idea. I guess he can DH some of the time. They won't have Sanchez DHing now, so I guess Sano could DH some of the time. Probably see him at first base some of the time. But now do we know if Kepler's healthy or not?
I haven't seen what the update on that is. But I'm really curious who's going to play the outfield. That just does seem like a
Well, it seems
question.
Like Kirilov's going to have to go play the outfield now. And that's, that's not his best position. He's a below average outfielder. He's above average, or he's at least a very good average first baseman. But he's an outfielder now. It is going to be really interesting. What happens to become where's Arise get his bats now? Does he keep playing first and Sano DHs, or does Sano's not a guy, Mike, that's going to hit if you let him sit around for 3 days.
Right.
He's got to be playing to have any chance. So, and then, what happens to the Miranda kid who can hit? And is a god-awful first baseman and a semi-awful third baseman, but he can hit. And I don't know. I think they'd like to move Miguel before the August 2 deadline, but they just didn't want to give him away, DFA him or something, and they had to make their move. So good luck to all parties concerned. He looks like he's in pretty good shape by his standards, at least when I saw him in his first game over in St. Paul. He looks like I don't think he's over 280. Okay, maybe. Which is for him is, 278 is about the minimum that you're going to see out of him. So I guess we'll find out, but it won't take long to find out. I think if he's played enough, if he gets up here, he plays a week, and looks like the same helpless fella that he was earlier in the season. Yeah. Then you do what you got to do and try to move him. Yeah. And they're not going to get anything for him. You're not going to pitch or anything, because his option for next year is $14 million. Yeah. Nobody's taking that. So anyway,
the thing about him that's crazy to me is that not that I had forgotten him, or I obviously knew that he was rehabbing this injury still, but like he went from integral middle of the order piece to like out of sight, out of mind this year so fast for me, and it just was this kind of striking how little I was even, anticipating or wondering about his eventual return. Like it just didn't even matter to me. And that kind of says more about him than anything, I think. Just that, he was so out of sight, out of mind for most of this year.
And by the way, they went out of their way not to mention him. We would, I'd been there a few times when the media was quizzing Rocco before the game on various injuries, and none of us brought up Sano, and Rocco didn't bring up Sano.
Okay.
And then finally, apparently, when he got finally brought up in Detroit on, over the weekend, he was evasive and said, we'll have some information on that later. So it's not like, oh boy, we can't wait to get Miguel back. They went out of their way to ignore the fact that he was obviously they took as long a time as possible.
Right.
For it this was a minor meniscus surgery. Now he's a huge man, obviously, but that's not a
it's like a 4 to 6 week injury usually, right? If you do the surgery.
Not a 3 month. That's not a 3 month recovery. So they were not in any hurry to get him back. And really, the fear is that he's Chris Davis, that the Baltimore guy, that there's just the modern velocity and the modern approach where you never see the same pitcher 3 times. All the things that now go into making hitting more complicated. And having a better idea what he can hit than they've ever had has just too much for him, and he's cooked. So we'll find out. Now, Davis, I had a friend of mine covers the Orioles, and I asked him about it to make that comparison. He said one of Davis's problems was that he never got a cheap hit because of the shift. Because he's a left-handed hitter.
Yep.
And it drove him insane that he would hit a one-hop line drive that always went over the second baseman's head. The guy would field out in the grass on one hop and throw him out at first base.
Sure.
And he just got, all of a sudden, instead of hitting 230, he's hitting 170, and it just drove him nuts, and then he was completely helpless. And Miguel doesn't have to beat the shift that much. I mean, the right-handed hitters, the shift is half as much an obstacle, or a third as much an obstacle as it is for right-handed hitters. I mean, right-handed hitters, it's 30% as difficult as it is for left-handed hitters, because it's so much easier to shift the second base. I mean, you can't put the shortstop out on the outfield grass because he can't make the throw, but you can put the second baseman 50, 60 feet out on the outfield grass and take away those hits. So anyway.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting. Twins start a series in Milwaukee today, and a couple off days this week. It's a weird start to the second half schedule, and teams are finally catching up to them in terms of games, but they didn't play till Saturday. Then they've got today, or they had Monday and Thursday off this week.
Thursday off this week. That's why they sent Smeltzer out there using 4 starters, and for a team that started using 6 when the year started, to have him use 4, and you're going out to play a San Diego team that's really struggling too. I mean, they were flying high, and now you look at their lineup, it looks like half their guys are hurt, and they got beat. But somebody was in Detroit to beat them. Somebody beat them 12-4 last night. It's not good. So they're struggling too. So maybe my dire predictions about the Twins won't be so bad, because tonight Milwaukee, with this great pitching, is starting some rookie for his second ever appearance. And then you get Corbin Burns on
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Don't forget about that one. But anyway, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the what becomes of these starters that they're running out there. Sonny Gray gave him a good game, and
Joe Ryan was pretty good.
Joe Ryan was pretty good, and so now you get to see now you get to see the other part of it, but I still, deep in my heart, do not think they have the starting pitching or the relief pitching to, they could win the division if the White Sox keep screwing around. But I just don't see how this pitching staff gets to the finish line. But what the heck?
It's baseball.
I like their
sometimes,
lineup. I like the lineup.
Yeah.
The shortstop's a superstar. Really is. He's a great player. And I guess we kind of lose sight of that one. Or some of us, including me, lose sight of that when we start worrying about everything else. That guy is really an addition, man.
Yeah, he is. Well, and they got that division lead back to 3.5 real quick. Yeah. It was just, Cleveland lost a couple. Chicago, I think, was 500 since the break. It's just no one's going to run away with that thing. And plus, you got to remember, too, they play Cleveland and Chicago 17 times combined starting September 2nd or something through the rest of the season. So this thing's going to go deep into September. I just don't imagine anybody's going to go too far ahead or too far behind. And those 17 games are going to probably tell you a big part of the story at some point. So we'll see about that. Patrick, it's almost Viking season. I know you don't want it to be. I know you don't care, but I see in StarTribune.com Vikings preview questions. We're talking about camp starting. It's I think the first practice is tomorrow, and the first one open to the fans is over the weekend. It's not a long off season in the NFL. They do a good job of kind of they do a good job being away when they can be missed, and then they get everybody back and excited about things. And it's just late July, but they're going to be dominating things again as soon as we know it.
Oh yeah, I mean it is amazing that when you consider 5 or 6 years ago you were wondering about concussions and what was going to become of football, and you looked at high schools that suburban high schools that used to have 200 kids playing football, and they now got 80, and you always start wondering about the future of football. And then along comes the pandemic and everything else, and we start watching more TV than we've ever watched. And the NFL's bigger right now than it's ever been in history, and the margin between the NFL and every other sport is probably greater than it's ever been. I mean, if you turn on or you look at ESPN.com, or you turn on that is not allegedly dedicated to the NFL, that it's just, okay, this is page one. This is what we're emphasizing today. It's phenomenal how popular it is with America. I don't know. I think it kind of fits the political profile of America now, where everybody hates each other, and football is the perfect sport for that. It is the perfect sport for hatred, and a violent game with violent people on and off the field to some degree, running around, and I think we have never been more football crazy than we are right now in this country. And the NFL, they get away with murder financially. They still have the worst union in sports. That you don't have to guarantee contracts, and they just they own the sports world. That's for sure. And good luck to everyone who's going to be going out to Egan and trying to crank out a column that isn't some piece of crap from an 8-minute interview with some guy that's got six other people talking to him. If you can do it, God love you. Congratulations.
The cynicism is. I love this. This is why we talk Vikings. We'll talk actual Vikings at some point too when they start playing. But I had plenty of Vikings talk over the weekend. A lot of my relatives are still big Vikings fans, even though they've kind of scattered around the country. So they kind of want to know what's the we got to talk sports with me, which I enjoy. I like talking sports. That's what I do for a living, right? So we talking about Vikings. They want to know what do you think about the season? And I'm saying honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they won 9 or 10 games and made the playoffs, but just kind of looking at everything, I think the biggest thing that they're going to learn from this year is that they need to have a more honest reckoning about what they have on their roster, and that 2022 is probably going to tell Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell that this roster needs more of a tear down than they've said yet. And maybe they already know that right now, and it's just year one, and they're going to see how their new principles and their new, magic applies to kind of a lot of the same holdovers, like Kirk Cousins, like a lot of these same defensive guys, and this kind of patchwork offensive line. But at some point, even if they don't want to call it a rebuild because they don't want to scare fans away, they're going to have a more honest reckoning and honest approach to fixing what was left for them.
They do have this advantage, the same advantage the Twins have, the division they're playing in, because the Packers are taking a step backward or two now that they have they got Aaron Rodgers back, and he doesn't have anybody to throw to. Devontae Adams was the most valuable player on that team. He'd get double teamed and still catch 12, and they let him walk. I can't believe they did, and he's got nobody to throw to. And I don't think they're that good. So they're gonna come backwards, and the Bears and the Lions stink. So I think that they if you win, if you win 10, you win the division. I'm pretty sure of that. So I think that they do have that advantage. They get to play. Well, 6 of 17 games
17,
now, and they also only have to play 7 road games, right?
7 true road games. Yeah, they got 8, and then the one in London.
Who are they playing in London? Who's that game against? In London? I can't remember. It was Jacksonville or somebody. I don't know who it is, but they only have to play 7 road games, so that's an advantage, and But use my line the next time your relatives are telling you how much they love the Vikings. When somebody tells me they love the Vikings, I say that's because you've never met them.
I think the Vikings are playing the Saints, is who they're playing in the.
Okay, so Saints are giving up a home game. That's weird, isn't it? Man alive. That town can't afford to be giving up Saints home games with everything going on down there as far as, the corporate world down there basically abandoning them. So that's weird. But where would you rather play the Saints? In New Orleans or in London? Exactly. So they got a lot of advantages going for them this year. So we'll see. But I really think the combination of Mensah and O'Connell is going to give us a new level of BS that's going to drive me crazy. So I might have to avoid it as much as I can, because Zim was the only ray of hope out there when he'd get the red rear end and start talking candidly, and controlling the message is going to be a big, big, big part of this whole operation.
Yes. Yes. What do you work harder to avoid, the hockey tournament or the training camp?
Oh, I don't. The hockey tournament used to be when we considered it this. You had to come and write the same crap all every year about what a glorious thing it was and stuff like that. That's not a requirement anymore. I don't mind the hockey tournament. I just if you go to the hockey tournament, you got a chance to talk to somebody and get an answer and write something decent and talk to somebody for 12 minutes. But the Viking thing has gotten just so difficult for those. If you're just dropping out and think you're going to get an interview with somebody, good luck. It's,
right.
But it's that way in every sport now. I mean, they're all the access is. The access has made life much more difficult for people who are trying to cover beats. I'll say that and I was talking to somebody about this. I was talking to actually Randy Shaver.
Okay.
Like they've lost a lot of veteran producers over there who are getting hired by the corporate world to produce content that instead of letting the media deliver their message, they're trying to, and they probably are learning this from sports. if the Vikings had their way, everything you read about them would be on NFL.com. And they're trained helpers at ESPN.com and other places. The people they got in their pocket, the corporate world is trying to send out their own message without filtering it through actual objective sources. And that's probably in sports bigger than it's ever been. That's for sure. So, and the Vikings are, going to be one of the teams at the forefront of that. You're not going to get Kevin Connell come in and by name say, our quarterback wasn't very good today. So anyway, it's a different world. That's for sure.
It is a different world indeed. Well, Patrick, I think we'll pick up stuff next week, but we talked about a lot already. Maybe we'll let you get back to a little bit of rest. I know you had a long weekend and get back to a little bit of a normal routine, normal schedule. Good talking to you as always. Let's do this again.
I did point out my disappointment that we weren't able to win the pre-professional championship of the world with the Aurora. But the good news is the Wilmer Stingers are in first place. So maybe we can still win a pre-professional championship in the Northwoods League. So something like that. The pre-professional championship. That sports club from Georgia was just too good for us. The academy, the soccer academy from Georgia defeated us for the pre-professional championship, but it didn't prevent 6,000 people from being there. So
no, it didn't prevent the Aurora from having their welcome to Minnesota sports moment, which is you go undefeated until the final game. And then that was perfect. That is for sure. They become one of us. They are one of us in more ways than they could have ever been if they won that game.
Yes.
All right, Patrick. Appreciate it. Take care. We'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.